guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle with Dan Fancy Creations, and today I have another fun tumbler tutorial planned for you guys. I am so excited about this one because I love how it turned out. If you guys have followed my channel for a while, you know I love creating scoop cups or ice cream scoop toppers. I just think they are a fun way to add a little something extra to your tumbler when you want to be a little extra. So today's tutorial is another topper video, but instead of being inspired by a dessert or ice cream, this one is actually inspired by my favorite cocktail that I get at our lakeside restaurant that's like 5 minutes down the road from us, so it's great. So today's topper is going to be created with the fake ice or the plastic vase filler that you can get at your local hobby stores. I actually have bags of this stuff on hand because I use it for my epoxy geode art. So it was kind of fun to use this product in a way that I hadn't used it before. So to make this topper, we're obviously going to be using the fake ice. I also created some little resin pieces of fruit. I have loads of molds that I've collected over the years. They can be a little bit pricey for quality molds, so if you don't want to invest a lot of money up front just to make one or two of these tumblers, you can always just purchase a few little fruit pieces from Amazon or Etsy. That's definitely something doable. You will still get the same result. You just won't have as much upfront money to put down towards it. I did purchase a few plastic pieces off of Amazon just because I liked the way that they looked, and added them and mixed it in with the resin pieces that I created. And if you guys have watched my scoop tutorials, you know that I like to make my toppers detachable from my lids. I just personally feel that in order to get the topper really clean and the lid really clean, then making them removable so you can clean both really well is really the best way to go. So if you guys are ready to see how I create this fun summer cocktail themed tumbler, let's get started. Okay, so as always, we're going to start with a base painted tumbler with white flat paint, and then you're going to spray paint your color choices on top of that paint. It really helps the colors kind of pop. It was raining when I decided to start this tutorial, so I wasn't able to take my iPad out to film that part of me spray painting my cups, but I do have several videos on YouTube. I will link one here for you so you can see me spray painting it. And these are the colors I used: Neon Fluorescent by Krylon, Sunshine Yellow by Rust-Oleum, and this one was a new one. I think it's Harvest Peach. I really liked it. It faded nicely into the yellow and the pink, so it was definitely a good choice for summer. I went ahead and applied a thin layer of epoxy to this tumbler, and we are going to be sprinkling Orange Julius and St. Jude from Peachy Olive Glitter and Prickly Pear Margarita from the Drunk Flamingo. I thought these colors just screamed summer. They're super bright and I love them. So we are going to put our piece of paper down, and I pour my glitter into a tea strainer. I got this tea strainer at Walmart years ago. It was just on a little end cap, but I know they have similar ones on Amazon. And we are just going to sprinkle this glitter on the edge of the pink spray paint. And I do this pretty much one line at a time. So once I get all the glitter sprinkled on one side of the pink spray paint, I will go back and sprinkle it on the opposite side of the spray paint. So that creates a gradient from the pink to the yellow and the pink to the orange. If I can keep my color straight. And don't forget to get your bottoms I just kind of toss a little bit of glitter up there. And once you're happy with the first line of colors, you can move on to your next one. So this yellow is St. Jude from Peachy Olive. It is one of my favorite yellows. And we are just going to sprinkle this where the yellow spray paint and the pink glitter mix. This will help create a gradient effect between the yellow glitter and the pink glitter. And I will do this on both sides. So once I'm happy with how the yellow and pink glitters are blended, I will sprinkle a little bit between the yellow spray paint and the orange spray paint. This will start the gradient for those two colors. And our last color that we are using is Orange Julius, also from Peachy Olive. And this color we are going to sprinkle right in between the yellow glitter and the orange glitter. Or sorry, the yellow glitter and the pink glitter. So that way the orange and the pink glitter have a nice gradient and the orange and the yellow glitter have a nice gradient. It's pretty smooth transition between each colors. And once you have all your colors on there, I like to kind of go back and touch up little spots if I need to. If you feel like one spot may need a little bit more of one color, you can definitely go back and sprinkle more of that. And once this epoxy cures, I will put one more layer of epoxy on top of this one so we have a nice smooth finish for our vinyl application, which is our next step. So this is what the cup looks like after epoxy. I went ahead and sanded the top rim so we have that nice smooth rim, a little bit of stainless showing so our epoxy grabs to it. And sanded any spots that may have had little glitter pricklies sticking up. So this is my fun vinyl that I picked out. It is a rose gold holographic and a really sparkly bright pink. And you can peep my topper in the background. I actually did the topper first, but I wanted to make sure I had all of my steps in order. So you get a preview of what the topper looks like. So for this vinyl placement, I placed the hot pink vinyl over the hot pink glitter, overlapping slightly the other colors, and then the rose gold holographic was on the orange and yellow glitter because I felt that those colors went best together. And I pretty much alternated where I placed them, so I didn't have a whole lot of strawberries placed together and I didn't have a whole lot of lemons placed together. And I would kind of turn them too, so we didn't have the strawberries all facing one direction. And these particular files, I cannot tell you exactly where I got them. I want to say it was probably Creative Market or Creative Fabrica. I do have a subscription to Creative Fabrica, but I do purchase a lot of files from Creative Market as well. So if you're going to use files, please make sure that you purchase them and support the designer. We don't want to be using Google search or anything like that. We want to make sure that we are supporting the local artists that design these things for us. And I think I made my fruit about 1.5 inches, maybe a little bit larger. But of course, if you want yours smaller or larger, you can definitely make them whatever size you want to. And the reason why I placed colors that were so similar to the glitter color was because I didn't want the fruit to be the main focus of the tumbler. Obviously, the topper is the showstopper on this tumbler, but I did want the cup to be just as pretty. So with adding the fruit, it's one of those things where you won't notice it at first, but once you look at it, you're like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. But if you want your fruit to stand out a little bit more, then you can use contrasting colors. So we laid our hot pink vinyl, and now we're going in and adding our rose gold vinyl. When I was applying this vinyl, I did leave a little bit of an open space because that is where I wanted my text to go. So we pretty much just did this around the entire tumbler. And just like with the pink vinyl, I was trying to make sure that we didn't have too many of the same fruits next to each other. Just spread them out a little bit. They don't need to be all clumped together. And I think I made 12 of each fruit. And once you get your vinyl placed how you want to, I let mine sit for a little bit so the vinyl could adhere well to the tumbler. Sometimes with metallic or holographic vinyl, I have trouble with it lifting. It likes to be fickle like that. So always just make sure that they're all stuck down. And now we are ready to apply our next layer of epoxy and our Milky Way. So I am applying I guess a medium thick layer of epoxy. I usually do very thin layers, but since this is going to be a Milky Way, I do want enough epoxy on the cup so that it can create that Milky Way effect and cells from the armor art that I will be using. When it comes to the bottom of the tumbler, I still do a very thin layer because I don't want any ridges or pools of epoxy down there. I want it to be as flat and even as possible. So once I get my epoxy on, I'm going to mix a little bit of epoxy with white armor art and hot pink armor art. I get my armor art from Counterculture. The pink is super pretty and super bright. I don't use it for very many tumblers, but I thought that this was perfect. So after you hit your tumblers with your torch, we are ready to apply our armor art. With the armor art, you want to make sure that it is mixed really well. It can be thick coming out of the container. I will usually set my little armor art container in front of my heater or in a warm glass of water about 5 minutes before I want to use it, and that really helps thin it out so that we can squeeze it out easily and mix it into our epoxy without it sticking to the sides of the container. So this is my little spatula that I will use to spread my armor art, but I do just use a popsicle stick to drizzle lines over it. And we are just going to drizzle our lines where each glitter color meets. So between the yellow and pink, the orange and pink, and then the orange and yellow. So I will drizzle one color and then I will go back and drizzle the other color. Always start with less than what you think you need. Armor art does spread a good bit, and it's always easier to add more than to take it off. So now I will get my little silicone spatula and really just let it glide along the top layer of the epoxy. I am not pushing down. I am just letting it kind of glide across these streaks of armor art so it smooths them out a little bit and they're not so defined. So I really like the look of the muted Milky Way, just enough to give it a little bit of like an overlay, I guess. And you can't really tell from the video, but armor art is great at creating cells on its own. You don't need anything else besides armor art mixed in with your epoxy, and you get really, really good cells. And don't forget to add just a little bit to your bottoms. Since the whole cup is covered with the Milky Way effect, we want to also do that to the bottom of our tumbler. And once we are happy with how it looks, we are going to take our torch and go over our entire tumbler, of course, to pop bubbles, but the torch also helps form more cells in the armor art. So I will heat it up just a little bit, and then I will focus on certain spots to help spread the armor art and create those cells that I love seeing when I use this product. And that is pretty much it for this part of the tumbler. I will just let it spin, let those cells form, and once this layer of epoxy is dry, I will take it off my turner, maybe sand it if I need to, if there's any part sticking up, and then we are going to add our vinyl quote, which I love. So this is our tumbler after that layer of epoxy is dried. You guys can see the fun cells popping up. So now that we have a nice smooth surface, we are going to apply our decal. This was actually a decal that I hand lettered on my iPad. If anybody is interested in it, I will put it up on my site, thedrunkflamingo.com, as a digital download. That's what I like to do in my spare time, just make SVGs. So this is our hot pink vinyl that is going to go up top. And then we have our offset, which is white, which is going to be the bottom color. I did do a tutorial on how to do an offset in Silhouette Studio. If any of you guys are interested in that, I will link that video now. So once we have both decals weeded, we are ready to layer them and apply them. I always like to use transfer tape that has lines on it. That way it is much easier for me to line up my text on the decal as well as on the tumbler. Sometimes metallic vinyl can be a little difficult to get up. I had one E that refused to come off of the backing, so it is going to get applied later. So we are going to layer this up, just match it up as best as you can, which is one other thing that the lines come in handy with. You can line up both decal colors. And then we are going to peel it off, and I'm going to find that blank space on the tumbler where I did not apply any of my strawberries or lemons. Line it up with the top, slowly slide it down, and press it down. I like to press it down in the middle, then one side and then the other side. That way we don't get any wrinkles. And then we are going to apply that fickle E that refused to come off. And once this decal sits for a little bit, then we will put it back on our turner for the final layer of epoxy. So now we are going to start our topper. I'm going to show you guys first how I start my lids with the magnets. This is how I make my toppers removable. So I'm going to take a little dab of epoxy and place it towards the back of the tumbler. I have done several of these, so I pretty much know where all of my magnets are going to go. If you need to line yours up, you can always put 2 magnets on your lid and see where it's going to touch the topper. I use 10 by 5 millimeters and 10 by 3 millimeter magnets. So now that our epoxy is on there, I am just going to place 1 magnet on each dab of epoxy. And we are going to let this sit and cure. And once this part is cured, we are going to add the second set of magnets. And while your magnets are curing, we can go ahead and start our topper. So I made this base just by pouring some epoxy into a cup lid that I cut off and made like a little barrier that I sprayed with cooking oil so the epoxy would not stick. It was kind of a mess, but after I made this base, I realized that you can use a car coaster mold. I don't know why I did not think of that to begin with. So this is the car coaster mold. We know it has that little indentation, but you can just indent it even more with your drill, like I'm doing now. And it makes a perfect little straw hole and will fit on, I know, a 20 ounce and a 30 ounce tumbler. I think it will also work for a 20 ounce modern curve. I haven't tested too many yet, but if you want to just make your own base, we just drill a hole in it like we would do our normal toppers. I drill my hole first so I know where to place my fake ice. I did match it up with the lid and just added a little dot of where I'm going to drill my hole, and then got to drilling. So you guys can see how the straw hole in the lid will line up nicely with the straw hole in our base. And now we are ready to apply our fake ice. So for the topper application, you're going to need the base, obviously, some hot glue, and some fake fruit. The lemons I got from Amazon. All of the others I have molds for. And then this is the fake ice that we're going to use. This isn't actually fake ice. This is just a diamond vase filler. This is what the bag looks like. If you want fake ice, it's actually in the shape of cubes. They do have that as well, that you can order from Amazon, I believe. And all we're going to do is basically start hot gluing this fake ice to our base. These are different sizes, which is why I really like them. And they work really nice for geode artwork. They also work nice for these toppers. but we have a large size and a small size. And I basically just put a small dot of hot glue and then place our piece of fake ice. Now we all know hot glue is not a permanent solution to anything. It can easily be peeled off. So this is really just a temporary hold. After we have everything set, I am going to go back and drizzle some epoxy over the entire thing, get it in all the cracks and crevices to make sure that all of these pieces really stay on. And I try to fill as many cracks and crevices as I can because I don't want a lot of water to kind of sit inside of this topper. I want to make sure that everything is sealed really well so that when we wash it, we're not going to get water basically on the inside of this. That way we won't have mold or anything like that growing, which I will show you guys how I do that as well. So I am going around the edges. I do also apply this fake ice to the very edge of this topper, just so our base is not showing. And once I got a decent amount of the fake ice on there, I started trying to figure out where I wanted my fruit to go. I will say if you have larger pieces of fruit like these lemons or strawberries, or I do have some orange slices too, which are a little bit bigger, I would start trying to apply them within your first layer or so of the ice. That way you can cover up a little bit of it with the ice and it will actually look like it's kind of sitting inside the ice like an actual drink. I hope that makes sense. And I also continued to check my straw hole. I wanted to be sure that there was nothing that was going to be obstructing the straw hole so we could easily place our straw so we could drink through it. We don't want to be trying to fumble around between ice chips just to insert our straw. So now that we are placing our larger fruit, we can start building up the ice around it. And the good thing about hot glue also is that since it's not a permanent hold, if you feel like you need to take an ice chip off or so, you can definitely do that. I did that with a few of mine like I'm doing here. Just peel it off, replace things, and stick it back down. And some of the larger pieces, you do kind of have to hold it in place while the glue dries. They do tend to lean and could fall over. But once the glue is dry, then it will stay in place. And as I was creating this topper, I was just falling more and more in love with it. I was so excited for how it was turning out. And then we are just going to continue to add this fake ice. I did kind of model it after, you know, what a real drink would look like, where the ice is kind of piled on top. And this is where I am adding the ice around the fruit so that it kind of looks like the fruit is sunken into the ice, just to try to make this as realistic as we can. It's obviously a fake topper, but we can make it look real. And this is where I am going around the edges with the ice. Even though the base is glittery and sparkly and pretty, since we are trying to make this look like a real on the rocks drink, we want to try to cover that up so we're just seeing the fake ice and fruit and not the base. And this was probably the most time-consuming part of the entire tumbler, but I truly enjoyed doing this, so it really did not feel like it took a lot of time. It's just a fun way to be creative and think about what kind of drinks you see on lake menus or beach menus and kind of create your own version of it. And after we are happy with our topper, I will set it aside until I have some epoxy ready. And then we are going to drizzle some epoxy all over the entire topper just to make sure that everything is sealed in nicely so that there won't be any water that is trapped in between little cracks and crevices when we go to wash our topper and our lid. So now that we are going to apply our epoxy, I thought about using a brush, but I did not. I really just took my popsicle stick and drizzled some epoxy over the crevices. I tried to get all of this in view for you guys, but it was a little difficult. I do have this sitting on a plastic cup so that if there are any drips, they will just drip off. You can also hold it by the lemon or other large piece of fruit that you have sticking up and wipe off any drips that may be dripping from the topper, which I really did not have too many of. And I really just kind of held this topper at all different angles and kind of let the epoxy just drip in there on any big little holes that I saw. And I really focused along the base too. I want to make sure that all those crystals stay on nice and tight so we're not having them pop off. And once you think you have enough epoxy on there, we are just going to let it sit in our box and cure. I did check it periodically to make sure that there were no drips, but again, I did not have too many. So now that that epoxy has cured, we are going to attach this topper to our tumbler lid. And even if our regular tumbler is finished, I always like to use a blank tumbler for this step. Just since we're working with epoxy, I don't want there to be any chance for epoxy to drip on our finished tumbler, because then we would have to sand it and re-epoxy. So I always just use a blank one. So now that our magnets are epoxied to the lid, I will just take a small drip of thickened epoxy and smooth it around the magnet. You can use clear epoxy, you can use colored epoxies. I thought this pink was cute because it matched the tumblers, so that is what we went with. And the reason I do this is just to ensure that the magnets are held in place as best they can, especially if you're going to be selling these. I just want to make sure that these magnets are not going to pop off. I do typically score the lid where the magnets are going to go so that the epoxy has something to grab onto versus just the plastic lid, just in case. So now that these two magnets are going to be held in place, I am going to go ahead and put our second magnets on top of the first one. These are going to be the magnets that are attached to the topper themselves. But to get them attached to the topper, this is what we will need to do. So I'm going to take my 10x3 magnets and put one on top of each magnet that is attached to the tumbler. So now we have two magnets stacked on top of each other. Then we are going to take a small dab of epoxy and place it on top of the top magnet. You want to have a decent dollop of epoxy on there, but you don't want to have too much that it's going to fall down the sides. This is also why I like to use thickened epoxy when I do this, so I know for sure it's not going to start running everywhere. So then we're going to take a straw, place this straw through the hole in the topper, and then we are going to place the straw into the tumbler, and then place the topper on top of those two magnets with epoxy. So when this epoxy cures, we are going to remove the topper. Two magnets will be attached to the topper, two magnets will be attached to the tumbler, and when we place the topper back onto the tumbler, the straw holes will line up nicely. I hope this makes sense to you guys. And that is pretty much it for this tutorial. Once this epoxy dries, we can remove the lid and topper and place it on our actual tumbler. I love how this tumbler turned out. It is definitely one of my top favorite summer tumblers that I have made. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I cannot wait to see what types of fake ice tumblers you guys create. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, and tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook, which is linked in the description. Thanks for watching.